Welcome to the Beauty of Breathing podcast, where we explore the wonders of optimal breathing. I'm Renata Nehme, a dedicated mom, entrepreneur, and myofunctional therapist committed to embodying the principles I advocate. Having recently undergone a tongue-tie release and palatal expansion, I'm thrilled to guide you through the transformative journey of embracing the beauty of breathing, effortlessly and through your nose. Let us know how much you enjoy the show by leaving us a review.
Now, is your name Renata Nehme?
Yes, Renata Nehme. Welcome everybody to Beauty of Breathing podcast. We have Dr. Reg McDaniel with us today. We are getting ready to go live on Instagram. So if you're watching this live, you're welcome to ask us any questions you may have. I'm going to first introduce our speaker, and then we are going to let him introduce our topic. So Dr. Reg McDaniel, he's a renowned pioneer in glyconutrient research. He has spent over 39 years advancing the science of micronutrition. He's the creator of the aloe-based supplement Menopol, which he's going to explain a little bit more about it later because I think there's a new name now, which achieved over $5 billion in sales. He's widely recognized for his groundbreaking contributions to glycomics. Dr. Reg has shared his expertise globally, delivering lectures at prestigious institutions and events, including the U.S. Congress, Royal Society of Medicine in London, and the National Cancer Institute. A graduate of UT Southwestern Medical School, Dr. Reg combines ancient nutrition principles with modern science, emphasizing the role of micronutrition in supporting immune health and reducing healthcare costs. His latest innovation, New Eden, continues his mission to promote healthfulness and revolutionize nutrition in today's economically challenged health industry. Welcome to the Beauty of Breathing. So to start off, will you let us know what initially sparked your interest in glyconutrient research and how did you become a pioneer in this field?
Well, I wish I could say I was so smart that I set a goal out there to do this, but actually with the team I was a member of, we kind of fell into something far greater than we ever thought was possible. If your listeners are familiar with the National Geographic grants that they gave to Buettner to try to find blue zones, they call them, where there's longevity of a population with good health. We have been in the science of why these blue zones exist. And the common denominator of all the blue zones, number one, is primarily a high percent plant-based diet, and number two, activity. And in these blue zones, the activity was just part of everyday life on these islands and isolated peninsulas where they didn't have electric motors or gas motors. And if they moved, they walked. If they did anything, they used their body muscles to do it. Whereas in the modern era, we have to call it exercise. You have to go to the gym. And the important thing we have found is that the active ingredient from the aloe leaf gel, which is acetylated mannose, that for short is called ace-mannin, that combined with exercise, you don't have to move to an isolated island or peninsula to get the benefits of the blue zones of longevity and in good health. My wife is a physician, and after about 30 years, she noted I had never been in bed in all the years we'd been married with some of the different old crud that people in the hospital and in the local community get. And it has protected me against common infectious agents, which is where our research started back in 1985.
Wow. I was born and raised in Brazil, so I'm familiar with walking everywhere. It is very, very common for us over there to walk. I remember walking to school since I was a little girl, and it was not close, it was far. And then at 14, I moved to America, and everywhere you go, you have to go by car. So definitely it takes a big toll in everybody's health. Over here with Beauty of Breathing, we talk a lot about breathing. We talk a lot about sleep, which are some of the most important pillars of health. So it's super exciting to have you here to bring the other pillar, which is nutrition. And I feel like Americans nowadays are waking up and becoming their own advocates for health. So they are looking more and more at research and finding out what else can they do to improve their overall health. Can you share the story behind the creation of Manipal and its journey to achieving over $5 billion in sales?
Well, actually, in August 1985, I was sitting in my office at Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center, where I was director of the laboratory and pathology. And an entrepreneur businessman made a appointment and came in his three-piece suit, and he was relatively excited, and he wanted me to be a medical consultant to a new company he had formed. He had had a small network marketing company, multi-level, called AvaCare, and they sold 12 products made from aloe vera leaf gel. I didn't have any trouble with that because most of his products were salves, lotions, potions to put on the skin. And because I grew up on a cotton farm in Abbott, Texas, and my mother always kept an aloe plant in the kitchen to break a leaf off if you had a chigger bite, a mosquito bite, or a blister, or any kind of skin lesion, and it reduced pain and it would heal fast and it wouldn't get infected. But lo and behold, he had a 32-ounce bottle called aloe vera beverage, and he called it Carolo. And in 1984-85, from 7 different states, he had notes sent to him from individuals that basically told him that they had this new unknown infectious disease called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is called AIDS for short, that was a panic type thing for society, because it was only in male homosexuals and drug addicts and prostitutes, but there was wide fear that it was going to break out into the general population. Well, he had these 7 reports that basically said, I drank your Carolo and I was on my deathbed waiting to die, sinking every day worse into my disease. And on drinking your aloe beverage, I am now back at work and in school and thought you'd want to know.
Wow.
Well, when he told me this, I was receptive and didn't make any negative response. But inside, I was saying, hogwash. This is just a placebo effect from desperate people. Well, at that time, it took me some time to realize these people didn't know each other. These were individuals from different areas that had gotten benefit. And I told him that he needed to go to a medical school, get an infectious disease specialist, and that I was not qualified to fulfill this role because he had raised $20 million to do research on aloe leaf gel, try to find out what's in it that is giving this benefit to these AIDS patients, and to make it into a new FDA approved drug. So this project started out right in the middle of the road of formal science, and over these 39 years, it has become virtually a spiritual journey because it is far more beneficial when added to the diet, this acetylated mannose called ace-mannan, than we ever thought it could be.
Wow. Wow. With over 39 years of experience, what are some of the biggest breakthroughs you've witnessed in glycomics?
Well, our original research was to try to find something that from the epidemiology, we thought this was a virus in these AIDS patients. And with the $20 million, he had 10 academic institutions working on all the phases of drug approval with the FDA. And I finally agreed to be a consultant. And the truth of the matter is, my father was killed in World War II when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And I had to work my way through college where I got a double major in chemistry and biology. I did 2 years academic research on cellular physiology. And to translate that is the study of how cells work and function in plants and animals. And this was very important. In addition, in the summer, twice, I was a extern to Dow Chemical Company in Freeport, Texas, the Beasley Research Center. And in this research center, we took liquids and gases combined with heat and pressure and catalysts and made different kinds of plastics with different properties, all the way from your transparent, thin plastic that covers things in the kitchen to glasses, pitchers, dishwashers, and even battery cases to put on the side of trucks for their lineup of batteries. So there was many different properties. Well, the importance of that is that every cell in an animal or the human body is an ultra micro little factory that, depending on the genes activated, hook together nutrient molecules in cellular synthesis to make biochemical compounds that are in cascades at multiple steps to carry out the biochemistry and physiology of life. And that's what we found out, that the active ingredient from the aloe leaf gel was involved in.
Wow. I do have some aloe in my kitchen. I've had it for years and I did the same thing. This makes me think of all the environmental changes that are happening throughout time. What's happening in a cellular level to our bodies nowadays with being exposed to so many different chemicals that are so detrimental to our health that we weren't back in the day? With myofunctional therapy, we talk a lot about eliminating fragrances, even dishwasher detergent, your laundry detergent, whatever you're using, whatever you're applying on your skin, candles, plugins, all those things with fragrances that are so bad. But do you know, and have you seen some research on what's happening to people in the cellular level being exposed to so many chemicals nowadays and toxins?
Well, first, let me state that our liver is an incredible organ and has multiple systems that have developed over many decades, if not thousands of years, to neutralize or inactivate noxious molecules that it takes the genes a time to alter and be able to detoxify and thing. However, in our modern society, they say that there are hundreds of new molecules developed in the organic chemistry laboratory that are used in flavors, in the colors of different food substances, and in cleaners and in solvents to improve quality of life. But when these new molecules are absorbed by our skin or if they're volatilized, if you can smell them, they're being absorbed by the capillaries in your lungs and taken in the blood to various organs in the body. And some of these come to the liver, and the liver doesn't know what to do with it. It has never seen anything like this. And all of this is happening so fast that it's causing new diseases that didn't exist before. And I use an example, particularly the autoimmune diseases, which there are about 80 different types, that these molecules confuse the immune system, and the body makes antibodies against these new substances that also attach to the surface of different cells in the body. And when it attaches to those cells, it alters their function. And that's apparently the reason why we've had an explosion of autoimmune diseases. I will never remember when I was a junior student on medicine, I had a lupus patient, and the chief resident said, "You got to present this to all your peers next Thursday, because you may never see another case of lupus in your career. It's so rare." Well, now in this common era, nearly everybody knows somebody with rheumatoid arthritis or lupus of the skin or the joints, or affecting their kidneys. It's become more and more common because of all these chemicals that you're making a point about are in our environment. And if we breathe or touch, or they get into our food supply or water supply and in our air and get in our body and cause what I'd say metabolic confusion, trying to know what to do with these new organic molecules.
My goodness. And it just makes us wonder if these huge companies know exactly what they're doing. Is it just for profit? They're, changing ingredients and adding things so it can make food cheaper so they can sell more? Are they purposefully adding all this sugar to make us addicted? So many questions. However, let's go back to aloe. What role does aloe play in your research, and what sets it apart as a foundational ingredient in your supplements? How do I know when I'm purchasing an aloe supplement? What am I looking for?
Well, that's a complex question you're asking. And in our original research, our thrust was to find something effective against the AIDS virus. Well, as I told you, there were 10 academic institutions working on this. And what they found out that this ace-mannan from the aloe plant, in the second step of cellular synthesis called endoplasmic reticulum, 9 molecules of this molecule from the aloe plant are hooked together in 3 chains to make a domain on the surface of all cells in all organs of the body. And this works through the genes, the code of life that is in DNA or our chromosomes, which everyone's familiar with the double helix of 46 chromosomes, which are 23 pairs, 23 from the mother, 23 from the father, that make up this helix. Well, it's working, this active ingredient from the aloe is working through that. And the mechanism of action for antiviral activity was different from anything that existed. What do I mean? Is that the pharmaceutical drugs for bacteria and for viruses and fungus interfere with the biochemistry of the little infectious agent to be effective against the disease that they cause. Well, this molecule from the aloe boosts the body's immunity or host defenses to a level never seen before. It doesn't interfere with the biochemistry of the infectious agent. It boosts the body's defense mechanisms. And therefore, one of the real quick benefits is that the infectious agent does not develop resistance against a drug, because it's the body's defense mechanisms that are being boosted through the code that is in DNA to be more effective against all infectious agents. And that was amazing to us, because this was so extensive that we even had orphanages in Africa contact us when we sent this to orphanages over there, that children with malaria, chronic malaria, which at that time I didn't know that the World Health Organization says that chronic malaria in children is the number one cause of death on planet Earth. Children. Well, these children that were having episodic fever, chills, and red cell destruction from these parasites in their blood that the mosquitoes had given them were destroyed by the body's boost of host defense, and they quit having fever, chills. They got out of bed, began to grow, and went back to school. And before it was over with, we got reports from multiple orphanages over there that they excelled in athletics, which was primarily soccer, or as the Europeans call it, football.
Yeah.
This oblong structure that we throw in the air, and seldom, only at when you start out the sessions that it's even kicked, is we call it football, but it's more and more aerial ball.
Yeah.
Anyway, the initial thing is that this molecule works in cellular synthesis to make cellular and humoral defensive molecules that are anti-infectious and boosts host defenses. And we thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't very long until we started hearing of from people that if they had allergies, if they had asthma, if they had hypersensitivity to some of these new organic molecules, that by adding this molecule from aloe to their diet, their symptoms went away, including autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
And we were staggered, because we thought we had the most potent anti-infectious agent to boost the body's host defenses and immunity. And here, conditions where there was overactive host defense that were improperly acting to cause symptoms, it was getting better also. So there was a conference in Europe that was just addressing for a week the mechanisms of turning on body's host defenses and turning it off. And I went and spent that week and found out something very simple, that it takes nutrient molecules in the diet to make the compounds to activate the body's defenses. But when the infectious agent is destroyed, the body needs to turn off this increased defenses, and it takes nutrient molecules to make the steps to bring it back to, shall we say, resting waiting for the next infectious event. And so we didn't have a immune or host defense stimulant or suppressant. What we realized is we had a modulator that, working with the program in the genes, if the body's defenses needed to be increased, it was utilized. And if they needed to be suppressed and brought back to normal watchful waiting, it required nutrient molecules to get there to modulate this activity. Well, before it was over with, we found out that in the cells for all the organs, that this molecule was fostering balance and harmony within the cells in one of the stages of cell metabolism, which is called the S1 phase, which I call good housekeeping, because in the S1 phase, the genes are turned on to get all the ingredients or molecules within the cell into the normal zone. Not too high, not too low, just in this normal zone. And this is not a new idea. Dr. Hans Cellular, which is credited as being the father of human physiology, called this balance in cells homeostasis. So this molecule from the aloe plant is utilized in cellular synthesis to turn on the genes to move everything to the homeostatic zone. And the importance of that is when you're in balance, you don't have deviations from normal, which in human communication, we call the patterns of deviation from normal health diseases and syndromes. So what we had in our hands was a molecule that was used in cellular synthesis to get to homeostasis. So it didn't matter what the different diseases or syndromes were, if the genes were properly turned on and this molecule from the aloe plant was added to the diet, in homeostasis, it didn't matter what the disease or syndrome was, it slowly went away. And in fact, in the early stages, when the cells are trying to move to the homeostatic status, you start feeling better. But if it gets to homeostasis, the deviation from normal is gone. And this is very important because when we started out in our research with a new drug application with the FDA, the company that was sponsoring all the research, Carrington Laboratories, got thrown out of the FDA because in the phase 1 studies for a new drug, it's called toxicity testing. And that should not be very comforting to a population. If you have any knowledge of health, you've been influenced by the pharmaceutical companies and conventional medicine that with I would say an attitude, if you have a physical, mental, or emotional deviation from normal health, we've got a drug for it. Well, Paracelsus was is credited with being the father of Western medicine. The reason I limit that to Western medicine is because in India and in the Orient, they've been using various molecules for thousands of years in efforts to improve the health. So Paracelsus is called the father of Western pharmacology. And his most famous statement was, pay close attention to this, quote, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose, end of quote. And that is the truth.
Isn't that the truth?
That the benefits of drugs is to interfere with the engineering and design of life to lessen or reduce symptoms. And the ideal drug is if you quit taking it, the symptoms come back because all it does is interfere with the engineering and design of life. Whereas nutrition, which I am telling you we eventually recognized was what the active ingredient from the aloe, the ace-mannan, being utilized in cellular synthesis is actually a nutrient. And for, I'd say, simplification, you can think of this as being a extension of the vitamin discovery era, that a critical molecule that no one knew how important it was, even though when I started out, I didn't know it, that the aloe leaf gel had a 5,000-year history and civilization of being used in Egypt, by the Greeks, by the Macedonians, by the Romans, and then the British for various folk medicine applications, including taking it orally to improve health. Well, we fell right in the middle of this because, as I pointed out, if this helps move the metabolism of the cells to balance or harmony or homeostasis, don't have deviations from normal if you're able to reach this. And just by adding other molecules that are low, absent, or missing in the modern food chain, or avoided by choice, that is what I have developed over the years and called New Eden, that this generates millions of adult stem cells, and also he lengthens the telomeres that are caps on the end of the chromosomes that protect the DNA from damage from some of these organic molecules you're talking about now in our society. So this is an incredible molecule, far more important than what we thought we had on our hands back in 1985 when we started out, just trying to find something that was beneficial for these AIDS patients. And I've neglected to tell you that I finally told them, yes, I would try to help them as a consultant, but the first thing you need to do is to do a pilot study in a bunch of AIDS patients to see if giving them this aloe leaf gel would do what all these reports said. And I thought that I would save them a lot of money of wasting this $20 million to make a new drug, because I didn't believe that this aloe leaf gel could be effective against viruses, which was found to be the cause of AIDS. Well, lo and behold, we did a little pilot study with FDA guidance right in the middle of standard science. And the patients that got the active ingredient from aloe improved 72% in 90 days.
Wow.
On a paper that had been published in the New England Journal of Medicine on staging of AIDS by Robert Redfield. That's a name you may or may not recall, but he was a young doctor at that time up in Washington, D.C. at the big Army hospital, and he became the head of the CDC under the first term of now President Trump. And he published a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is essentially what I would call a papal bull for American medicine about the staging of AIDS. And I contacted Redfield and told him that this active ingredient from aloe improved these patients on the criteria that he had in his paper in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Wow.
I'm amazed because I just did that paper to try to predict how long patients would live before they died. I hadn't heard of them improving. Well, it's a long story of how the czar for the AIDS epidemic was named one Anthony Fauci. And he gave an edict that small developing companies that thought they had something effective for the AIDS epidemic believe what they had was far more valuable than it really is, because they didn't have the capacity to work their way through the FDA. And if they did, they didn't have the capacity to make enough of the material, much less distribute it. Therefore, will not pay any attention to any of these new companies. And so Carrington Laboratory collapsed with this, that was sponsoring all this research. And there we sat with a lot of information from these 10 academic institutions where I was getting all this information in to interpret it for the lay people in the Carrington Laboratory. And we sat there with incredible information about the benefits that this molecule had in health, yet we could not progress in the FDA. Then in 1994, the wisdom of our government, they passed what was called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, which established the dietary supplement industry formally with our federal government. Somehow we awakened to the fact we didn't have a molecule that was made in the aloe plant that acted like any pharmaceutical drug. We had a nutrient ingredient under the Dietary Supplement Act. And what I may have neglected to tell you, that one of the reasons we were thrown out of the FDA is we could not, in the first stage, which is toxicity testing, we couldn't give them a lethal dose for 50% of the animals. And furthermore, we couldn't give them a value for 100% death for animals. We could not kill anything. We even since these 10 different academic institutions were working at different stages in the 3-phase process for the FDA, they had given 3,000 milligrams a day to undergraduate students at the University of Texas, and there was no toxicity. Furthermore, 50 medical students from a medical school in Houston got sterile IV infusions of the active ingredient from the aloe. We not only didn't kill any medical students, we didn't cause any toxicity. Well, this is heresy in the drug paradigm, and that's part of the reason we were thrown out. However, the Deshay Act that I mentioned in 94 awakened us that we had a dietary supplement ingredient. And it's amazing, and I never cease to be astounded at the reports I get on my emails from all over the United States, but I have lectured in 15 different countries now about this active ingredient from the aloe and the benefits that it can produce, and just about any deviation from normal that a human being can have physically, mentally, or emotional. I point out that you can't imagine the number of people that have come up to me and grabbed me or hugged me and tears in their eyes saying I was so depressed I was going to kill myself. I had bought a gun, had ammunition, or I was saving up drugs to end my life. And I took your active ingredient from the aloe, and I'm so glad I didn't kill myself. I'm happy now. And what I point out is that the metabolism of all the cells in all the organs of the body utilize this molecule from the aloe to balance the metabolism within the cell. And these individuals begin to see good things in life rather than nothing but depression and hopelessness. And particularly in the United States, I point out to these individuals, this is not normal to wake up as a citizen of the United States and say life is not worth living. There are millions of individuals from all over the world trying to get here because everything is so wonderful. And to be born here and having this type of malfunction of the metabolism within the brain cells, that your mind makes these decisions, I'm going to end life, is not normal. And what this molecule does is supports the body's innate code inside of DNA to move to the normal homeostatic zone for all cells and all organs.
That is fascinating. I can listen to you all day long. For individuals new to this glyconutrient supplements world, what advice would you give on incorporating them into their daily health regimen?
Well, one of the biggest challenges I say is for the human being is to live in balance. We need a broad dietary supply, primarily from plants, but not only from plants. But you need a broad inventory for the code that is in DNA to work with to make bioactive compounds to run the biochemistry of life. And you can't make these compounds that move to homeostasis if you don't have a broad supply of nutrients. And this is so basic that grandmothers and mothers for generations have, I think you've probably heard, if you want to be healthy, eat different colors of fruits and vegetables. Well, that's just a layperson's way of saying you need a broad diet for the genes to work with to move toward normal health. The next things that you can recall that grandmothers and mothers have said, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that is so true about the human condition. And these are the two primarily common denominators that the National Geographic Society, with its grants to Buettner, gave to him starting in the year 2000 to look for places on Earth where people had longevity and were in good health. In other words, living independently into their 90s, and some of them even over 100. And in fact, in Okinawa, which is one of the blue zones, they had a woman that lived to 116 and was relatively alert. And in our research, I kept trying to get people interested in contributing toward research on nutrition. And that's a difficult thing because there isn't enough people even interested in drugs to do all the research with drugs that the drug companies would like to do. Mm-hmm. But a woman appeared in my lobby in the early 1990s with a check for $200,000. And I was shocked. She said that her husband built oil and gas rigs in West Texas, and he had sold 4 of them, and he needed a tax write-off. We've had 5 family members die of Alzheimer's, so we would like to give this $200,000 for research to be done on Alzheimer's.
That was going to be my question. My father has Alzheimer's disease after many years of undiagnosed sleep apnea.
So is he still alive?
He is.
Well, let me finish this story. I went to the medical school over in Dallas where I went for 4 years and then did 2 residencies at Parkland Hospital, and had that $200,000 and wanted to get them involved in research with Alzheimer's. And they threw me out and kicked me off of the clinical faculty because this was a nutrient and not a drug or a potential drug. The FDA had refused it as to be a drug. I had been a volunteer for a little medical school in Fort Worth that got open for osteopathic physicians. And lo and behold, they didn't have enough money for the faculty. So I taught pathology gratis for 2 years, and I thought I had some stroke there. And in the interim years, the state of Texas had taken it over, and where they had been in old secondhand buildings originally, here were these huge stone edifices that the state had planned, and I was put into a room with 6 PhD pharmacologists. And I started my presentation about nutrition. Finally, they stopped me and says, "You're wasting our time. We're only interested in drug research because that's where all the rewards are, the future, and all the grants. And we're not interested in nutrition." Well, I was invited to the Miller School of Medicine at the University of Miami in Florida.
Mhm.
And it's an interesting story. It's called the Miller School of Medicine because a real estate individual was in an auto accident and was nearly killed, and he was in the ICU, and they pulled him through, and in appreciation, he gave $1 million to their medical school, and they named it after him. And his wife was very much into natural medicine. And I was invited to come down and lecture on these glyconutrients, the active ingredient from the aloe plant, the ace mannion. And the dean of the school said that we want to be the premier medical school in the United States to evaluate Oriental medicine, Ayurvedic medicine from India, Kunundari medicine from Central and South America, and folk medicine from Africa. Find out what works, why it works, and integrate it into modern medicine. There I knew was the place to take my $200,000 check. And they gave me a faculty member that was a vegan. His name was John Lewis. And I was blessed because even his boss was a vegan. And Dr. John was a bodybuilder and had all types of pictures and trophies for showing the benefits of a vegetable diet and fruits and nuts and berries, and reduced reliance on meat and eggs and different things like that. And his boss was a marathoner, and used that to emphasize the importance of a plant-based diet. And of course, my formulation, New Eden, has in it different molecules from plants. And so we went to 5 different health systems that had Alzheimer's patients, and they would not work with us, even though we had the money, because they were only interested in pharmaceutical drugs. Wow. Finally, the Miami Jewish Health Service, which had the biggest retirement center and 150 beds for Alzheimer's patients, and also an outpatient program for Alzheimer's, basically met with us and said, "You got money? We'll take your money and do the research, because we got plenty of Alzheimer's patients."
Amazing.
And their skepticism and cynicism was almost insulting. However, I was kind of used to this by this time. And so we just proceeded. But about 6 months after that, they were supposed to do 30 pilot patients that their institutional review board said we had to do a safety study, which is part of the paradigm of pharmaceutical drugs, and that's what they were oriented for. So we had to do a safety study, but we got a bonus. Not only did we show no evidence of toxicity to the patients, but we got potential mechanisms of action, because we had to spend all our money on different studies to show that there's no damage to the liver, the bone marrow, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys. And in this body of material, we found out that millions of adult stem cells were generated. They increased, they were called CD14 monocytes that have stem cell potential. And these were in the millions, and they migrated in the blood to the brain, where neurons were not working properly or were dead. And in a process that most physicians don't know about, periodically there is a preventive health program that is in our genes that aged and damaged cells are replaced by a stem cell, and it differentiates just like in the embryo to replace the poorly functioning cell. Well, these patients, 69% of them got benefit for improved memory and cognition.
Wow.
And when we were trying to get them to do the study, the director of research sit over there with his head kind of like he was halfway asleep, with glasses about as thick as the bottom of a Coke bottle, and never said a word. He found out after 6 months of their agreeing to do this study that I had been invited to give some lectures at the medical school. And he said, if you and Dr. Lewis will come to my office at a certain time, I will break my temple schedule, because if you think Christians kind of shut down their hospitals at Easter and Christmas, and you haven't seen anything like an Orthodox Jewish facility shut down for Passover. And I was down there during Passover. Yet the director says, I will break my schedule, and if y'all will come at a certain hour. He was a totally different person. He was leaning at the table, eyes fixed on ours, and says, we've done the first 6 patients. That gives you an idea of how interested in working with us they were. They were to do 30, and in 6 months, they had only done 6. They have all improved memory and cognition.
Wow.
There quietly, and he says, did you hear me? I said, they've all improved memory and cognition. We've done research for 20 years on other various potential drugs, and we have never seen patients improve memory and cognition. What in the world is going on? Well, the best we could tell him was that every cell works better with improved nutrition. And brain cells are no exception to this. They function better, and particularly these, in our results, it showed that the stem cells, CD14 stem cells, improved in amount about 400%. Well, in addition to this, we drew blood when all the patients entered the study, and we drew blood when they exited the study and froze it. And when the assay became available to us for brain-derived maturation factor, this was increased even though it was diluted with the serum of the body's thing. We didn't have any spinal fluid, which obviously would have been higher, but even in the body's dilution with the body's blood volume, this is that. So not only did the stem cells increase in number, they were differentiating, just like in the embryo inside the brain, to become new functioning neurons. And this is why they improve memory and cognition. Well, with this, we opened the door to the medical school that they would allow us, if we had the money, to do a controlled clinical study where that you frequently hear about on television from experts that say that there is no evidence that anything works unless you do a double-blind placebo crossover study. And these studies cost millions of dollars. And we had an individual who said his wife was worked for a company that was one of the major contributors to the National Alzheimer's Foundation in New York City.
Wow.
He said they will be interested in this. And he met with us and said, put together an application for this $2 or $3 million study that the medical school says now you can proceed to. Well, Dr. Lewis worked night and day putting this package together. We probably set a record for rejection. And this is part of the story. I could write a book about all the disease societies and foundations that they are a scam. What they do is raise money primarily for their staff and their galas and their entertainment and their salaries. and put very little of the money donated into research for their disease. The worst thing that can happen to them is for you to have an answer to their disease because you have no basis to be telling the public how important their work is to take care of and eliminate this disease. Well, that's all a fraud because we probably set a record for rejection. And there is a former administrative assistant of mine and a physician that are trying to raise the funds to do the definitive study in Alzheimer's disease at the Miller School of Medicine, which they estimate that to have a controlled population and that you choose your patients by this computer to put in each group, and the researchers and the patient cannot know what they're being received. In other words, it's got to be double blinded. And it's very difficult to get these studies go because nobody wants to be in a study that they may be getting a placebo.
Exactly.
Like the real stuff, but isn't. Well, we're trying to raise the funds to do this study, and I hope before I die, it can be done. But in the interim, we have found out not only does this active ingredient from the aloe plant make millions of adult stem cells come out of the bone marrow and circulating into the blood, we have taken individuals that were on the organ transplant list for new hearts, new lungs, new liver, new kidneys off because adding this to the diet, these stem cells migrate in and the function of their organ improves because of these cells that differentiate and restore function to the kidneys, to the heart, and to these organs. And this is a general benefit. But in addition, I found out that lo and behold, it's kind of a long story I won't go into, but with a researcher in San Antonio in the year 2000, we published a paper of 260 people that were over 50 that added this active ingredient from the aloe to their diet and reversed objective biomarkers associated with the disabilities of aging that were developed by Tufts University and Johns Hopkins for the federal government when they realized after World War II that the amortization tables for Social Security were going to pot because people were living longer and getting benefits from Social Security. And what these studies were, what do we mean by grandpa or grandmother or auntie or uncle are getting feeble? And they developed these objective biomarkers as they tested these patients as they got older to tell just how feeble they are in numerals. And they have published a book on this. And the first half of it determines what they found out with these patients. And the last half of the book is all you got to do is just change your lifestyle, in including diet and activity, which are some of the hardest things there is to get human beings to do. Fortunately, we have found out just by adding to your diet the ingredients in the New Eden formulation that you can get virtually 90% of the benefit of total changing your lifestyle. Because these are the nutrient molecules, the programmings in the DNA, the code of life, require to make the bioactive compounds to run the biochemistry and physiology of life. And I keep repeating that because it is so important and so different from toxic drugs that just symptoms. And I'm happy to be with you because I want every person possible that's on earth to realize they can benefit from this. And I am very limited as an individual in getting this across to not only the population in the United States, but the worldwide population. There is no one that cannot benefit from this. And I hope that the National Geographic Society, with all their capacity, they've already had sections in their journal, but they also have written 5 books, and they have a Netflix segment on the blue zones.
Okay.
About twice a week, I get an email in about some aspect of the blue zones that they're trying to get across to the public, the importance of a more comprehensive diet, which we achieve by the ingredients that are in New Eden, which is available on the web.
That was going to be my question. New Eden, then it's the new nutrient supplement that I can purchase. Anybody can purchase?
Yes. What it is the active ingredient from the aloe plant, and added to it are molecules that are low or missing in the general American diet. Because, example, we don't particularly in this country eat turnips and cabbage and cruciferous vegetables. Fact is, there is a special amino acid called cysteine that are in cruciferous vegetables that have kind of a bite. It's a sulfur molecule, and you can't threaten children enough to get them to eat these cruciferous vegetables. But in New Eden, we put this amino acid cysteine in it, so that even though you don't eat cruciferous vegetables, you're getting this because this cysteine is utilized in cellular synthesis to make glutathione, which is very important in every cell. And you have to have glutathione in your diet to quench free radicals that are generated by the mitochondria that are in every cell that make ATP, that is the energy system that our body operates on. That is very interesting in that in photosynthesis, there's a narrow band in the blue-green area that energy from the sun strikes chlorophyll and chloroplast inside of individual plant cells like algae or the blade of grass or a leaf on the tree. And the carbon dioxide that as animals we breathe out from our metabolism, in photosynthesis, the carbon of CO2 is hooked together, and a little bit of this energy from the sun is put in that bond between each carbon. And this carbon skeleton is the basis for the structure of amino acids, fatty acids, and the saccharides or the sugars that make up the composition of our body. And to this carbon chain that is common to all 3 of these substances, the amino group, a nitrogen with oxygen, hydrogen, are hooked to the carbon molecules to make amino acids. And the fatty acids, it's just a hydrogen molecule added to it. And in the carbohydrates, it's a HO, or oxygen and hydrogen are added to it to make the sugars or saccharides. And the mitochondria in every cell break that bond between the carbon dioxide molecules that are in the carbon chain, and that little bit of energy is transferred to what's called adenine triphosphate, which is 3 bonds of energy that are utilized to move our arms, our legs, or mechanical to used in metabolism, like we're talking about using cysteine with 2 other amino acids to make glutathione. Well, it takes ATP to hook them all together. And we utilize ATP in the electrical activity of our brain, which when we're conscious and hopefully thinking, and of course, that's why I'm with you, hoping to inform individuals the importance of more comprehensive nutrition to support the engineering and design of life that is coded in the DNA in our chromosomes that are the basis for life.
Oh my Lord. I need to bring you back one day so we can talk only about mitochondria. And for those of you listening, I know a lot of moms that follow me, we usually don't do Tylenol because it reduces the glutathione. How do they say that?
Well, one of the key things I like to stress that this is safe beyond compare, proven by extensive and extended FDA studies that led to being kicked out of the new drug process. It is effective because it supports the engineering and design of life that is coded in our DNA and all our genes. And it is also economical beyond any so-called health experts or politicians' wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And every person on earth could benefit from this because, as the National Geographic Society Blue Zones show, this is the science for why the blue zones of extended years of life in good health exists. And I also add that it's very important what you think and know, that you should never take this with an empty spirit. That, broad nutrition, activity, or exercise are common denominators to maximize good health in human beings.
Very good. Now I can say it's the glutathione that is depleted by taking Tylenol. So usually we avoid that for our children. My Lord, this has been such a wonderful hour. As we close this Beauty of Breathing podcast episode, looking back at your career, what accomplishment are you most proud of, and what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Well, I'll send you an email. I think this is, again, a good interaction. And unfortunately, I could talk for hours, but I suspect that your vocabulary communicates with the public better than the fact that I spent till I was 32 years of age in formal education from double majors in college to medical school and 2 residency programs, and 30 years of practice in a hospital, which I thought I was unqualified to get involved in this. But then I found out that I had had part-time jobs over the years that contributed to my ability to be a worthwhile consultant to Carrington Laboratories that was trying to develop a new pharmaceutical drug from the active ingredient from the aloe, which in fact is a nutrient that is very important in the metabolism of our cells. And I would like for everybody on earth to be able to know this and to be able to take advantage of it. And I hope, working with you, that we can share this with more people.
100%. If you guys over here have a family member who has been affected by Alzheimer's or HIV, please share this. Share this on your social media. Share this with other colleagues. And if anybody would like to do a compensation and help you guys raise money for this research, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'll try to go to my emails and send that to you.
Okay.
And possibly you can put that on
in the show notes.
End of this segment that I understand is going to be a audio only for individuals to hear about the good news. You don't have to move to an isolated island or peninsula. There's proof that one of the blue zones is in Loma Linda, California, because about 30,000 Seventh-day Adventists, based on biblical guidance, have a very high incidence of a diet based on plant molecules. And the third common denominator of all these blue zones, that all the individuals had personal gardens. And you have to let the produce on plants start to mature on the plant for the genes in the plant to put the nutrients into the fruit or vegetables that our DNA calls for in cellular synthesis to be able to hook together to make these important bioactive compounds that run the biochemistry and physiology of life. And it's that simple, and it's amazing. All these points, time and time again, I was faced with the question, how in the world did this come to be? And the only answer that I can come up with is that there is a creative, organizing, and designing power in the universe at work that has done all this activity that's present in nature of what the plants provide that the animal kingdom must have in its code of DNA to run normal biochemistry and physiology of life, which results in longevity and in good health. And all the way back to the Greeks, there have been things written about fountain of youth. And in fact, here in the United States, if you read about it, they say Ponte de Leon from Spain was all over Florida looking for the fountain of youth. Well, the fountain of youth is between your ears in your choices of different foods and the amounts, and having a purpose in life that, as in the modern era, that you will do these things that are essential, that allows you to participate in the future with events that you would like to be present and alive to enjoy, like your grandchildren or your children graduate from different institutions, including, say, college and marriage and the firstborn. All these things, there's a lot of benefit from longevity and having a purpose in life. And if you have a purpose in life, you will do these things that are required of nutrition and activity. And that's what the book written by Brutner points out, that you must have a purpose in life. Like I was talking about, never take this on an empty spirit. If your spirit is looking forward to the future, you will do these things that end up giving you longevity and good health, because eventually you find out that there is nothing more valuable in your existence than good health. When I was in high school, I remember Rockefeller was in aging years, and on the radio they were trying to find mother's milk to give him just to get a few more breaths and heartbeats, because he was regarded as one of the richest men in the world. But all that money could not do what he needed, is more ability to breathe and his heart to beat and to get more life. Life is the most important thing that we have given to us. And that's what we support with more comprehensive nutrition.
I love it. Amen. And this is how we end our latest Beauty of Breathing podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Until the next one, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Dr. McDaniel.
Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful episode of the Beauty of Breathing podcast. Make sure to join the conversation on our Instagram page, MyoMoves, and continue exploring the fascinating world of airway health with us. Until next time, let's breathe deeper, live fuller, and discover the beauty in each breath. Quick disclaimer: the Beauty of Breathing podcast has been produced for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. All of the content, views, and opinions shared by our hosts and guests should not be a substitute for medical advice. Please consult with your healthcare professional for any medical questions.